Why, hello there, friends, and welcome to the wonderful world of standard magic. Indeed, I have taken a break from that Talran business to bring to you a standard deck of my own creation that has done quite well for me so far. I made it a few days ago, played about 20 games, and this deck has won about 18 of them. Now you might be thinking, where is the sideboard? And I'll tell you. You see, when I create a standard deck, I like to run it through the gamut of single games first, without the sideboard, so there's no matches involved, just to see how it fares and to see where it fits in the metagame that's going on online. I do that for about 50 games or so, and then I create a sideboard, and then I run it through the matches. And if it does well, then I might even put it in a tournament or two, a daily. So that's that. Also, when I create a deck, I don't enjoy going online and finding out what's popular. I enjoy creating it from the ground up. It's half the fun for me. Sometimes that doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. In this case, I believe it does, so far anyway. So let me show you the cards involved in this deck, which you might have noticed is called American Aviation. And then we'll get to some games. The deck is called American Aviation because it is red, white, and blue, and there's a bunch of flyers. In fact, everything in the deck is a flyer except for Geist of Saint Draft, and he's like half a flyer because he shits out an angel every time he attacks. And because everything is a flyer, Favorable Winds becomes an essential card. This is not a card you usually see thrown around the format because it's not that great. I think it's like a nickel. It's worth like a nickel. But it works with everything, and it makes everybody bigger and better. And since this deck is like the missing link between aggro and mid-range, it's not quite hardcore aggro, but since it's that missing link, it really helps me take home the win before like turn 7 or 8 comes around, which is pretty essential against some of the control decks out there right now. I have to win as fast as possible, or Sphinx's Revelation will just take me down. Next up, we have Is It Charm. Is It Charm is the best charm in Return to Ravnica, in my opinion. It's very versatile. Early on in the game, I could kill their early drop, or I can use it to counter their removal against my dudes. Or late in the game, I could sandbag a couple of lands and trade them in for what are hopefully better cards with the draw 2, discard 2 mechanic. Next up is Teleportal. Teleportal is my favorite card in Return to Ravnica, with perhaps the exception of Jace. The reason for this is because it is a red-blue mini overrun, something that red-blue doesn't usually get, I think ever get, really. It's extremely helpful in this deck. I have a lot of guys, 16 creatures, not to mention the Midnight Hauntings and the little angels that pop out of Geist. So I usually have quite the little army, and the fact that they can all get through for 5 mana without fear of surprise blockers, like Midnight Haunting and Restoration Angel, means that it does have some advantages over Thundermaw Hellkite in certain situations, and is why I play 2 of each. Additionally, I could use it for 2 mana early on in the game to get Geist of Saint Traft over to the enemy lands to tickle his funny bone, and still be able to use Geist on the following turn if I need to. And if I did that, then you're looking at, between the 2 turns, roughly 10 to 12 damage, depending if I have a Favorable Winds or 2 out. So that's useful in itself, just for 2 mana. Over on our 3-drop section, we start with Lee of Sky Knight, another card you might not see running around too much, though I don't know why. I feel like this card has a lot of value to it. 3-1 is nothing to scoff at, especially with Favorable Winds and Teleportal, making that 3-1 better, but also it detains They're early drop, so it puts aggro on the back foot just a little bit. I could out-aggro the aggro if I draw enough of these guys. I like them so much that at first I had 3 Geist of St. Traphs, and I found the Sky Knight to be better in most situations, so I took out 1 Geist of St. Traft and put it in another Sky Knight. Speaking of Geist of St. Traft, I mean, there's not much to say about this tournament staple here. He's a fantastic card. The only reason he's a little worse than Lee of Sky Knight is because the early game of my opponent is almost always there. He can't usually get in unless I'm willing to sacrifice the actual Geist or I have Teleportal. So that's where Sky Knight flies over my opponent's creatures most of the time. Next up, we have Detention Sphere. I don't know about you dudes, but in the online situation, we are overrun with token decks. They have run rampant. They're everywhere. So Detention Sphere helps me take care of that business. 1 Detention Sphere means all the tokens out in the field go away, whether it's the Selesnya Centaur army or just the standard black-white or blue-white spirit or human army of destruction. Detention Sphere takes care of all of that, or in a pinch, just their one singular guy I don't want to have to deal with. Midnight Haunting, as alluded to before, are wonderful surprise blockers, especially with favorable winds out. 2 2/2s, considerably better than 2 1/1s. 2 2/2s can just about trade with anything. And then when they're 2 3/3s, well, forget about it. Towergeist, perhaps another interesting choice because you don't see this fellow around, despite him being dressed to the nines. I mean, just look at this wonderful, wonderful art. He's beautiful. He lets me sift through my deck, helping me find perhaps the removal I need, or just the big guy that will help me take over the game. And in a pinch, he is a 5 blocker, especially when he's a 3/3 or a 4/4. I could trade with a lot of stuff. And with the Angel, I get to sift through things twice. The Angel, if you haven't guessed, is the queen of the deck, the central focus. I can blink in a Sky Knight to detain somebody. I can save a Geist of St. Traft as he's attacking to bring him back the next round. I could sift through my deck one more time with the Towergeist, or perhaps I just need to tap all the flyers again, and then I can blink Thundermaw Hellkite. Whatever I'm blinking, or even if I just use him as a surprise, 3/4 or 4/5, Restoration Angel gets it done, and gets it done with style, might I add. Then we've got the Thundermaw Hellkite. Again, not much to say about the Thundermaw Hellkite that you couldn't figure out on your own. 5/5 flyer with haste that taps on my opponent's creatures. What's not to like? A lot of times, if my opponent has a lingering soul army, it just outright kills them all. Most of the time when I play Thundermaw Hellkite, if he isn't murdered, not necessarily with the spell murder, but you know what I mean, I'll just win the game right then and there. It'll be, you put down Thundermaw Hellkite for 5 mana, and you win the game. I'm only playing 2. The reason for this is because this deck really excels at just 4 drops. I have just the 2 5-drops because it might be a little bit of a pain to get there with the 24 mana. Especially since by the time I do get there, my opponent is likely either dead or almost dead. So I don't want a whole bunch in my hand when I'm not going to be able to play them. I also bought 2 Bonfire of the Damned. They are far cheaper than they were even a month ago, so I didn't feel too bad about it. I mean, it's a wonderful card. It belongs in this deck. Whether I miracle it and take out their entire army or just save it in my opening hand to take out all their 2/2s or 3/3s eventually, saving a whole bunch of damage, or perhaps if they're flyers, flying in and winning the game. It has been a fantastic card. Even used as a blaze can be useful. I have won the game on a couple of occasions just by miracling it for like 6, and that was the last 6 damage I needed. And voila, I won the game. As far as the mana base is concerned, we've got the Steam Vents and Hollow Fountains. Obviously, when Gate Crash comes along, I'll be finagling this a little bit so I can use the Boros version, the Sacred Foundry, which I already have purchased from the original Ravnica. And then we've got the M10s / Innistrad dual lands, which are very good, especially with these guys out first. And then the filler. I am only using 24 lands. As mentioned before, this deck wins usually with the 4 drops. Thundermaw Hellkite is the final nail in the coffin if I get that 5th mana. So everything usually works pretty well. Everything's extremely synergistic. Now, you might be saying there are a few omissions here. Number 1 is my lovely Tamiyo. Why am I not playing Tamiyo? And again, it's because of the mana cost. This deck really doesn't want many things with 5 mana. Thundermaw sadly works a little bit better than Tamiyo in this particular deck. Though I would love to play her, it would actually make my deck worse to do so. The Sphinx's Revelation, same deal. By the time I get to use it, I'm really only gaining like 3 life and 3 cards, and at that point, I'd rather just be playing Thundermaw Hellkite or an Angel or even a Tower Geist to just throw in the last bit of damage and win the game. I understand that Sphinx's Revelation is just the most wonderful card in Standard right now, and I am playing the right colors for it, but it is not right for this deck. Jace 2, I love that card. Too slow for this deck. I believe I am playing all the necessary cards for a speedy missing link between aggro and mid-range deck. So, come with me, my gentle friends, on a magical journey into the land of Standard, where you shall bear witness to American Aviation's wondrous rise to power.